You are the awesome one, and there is none like you. With you we win. You're our champion. You we can lose. We always win. You're our champion. We lift our hands, we lift our voice, we celebrate our champion. We sing halal, halal Yahuwah, for the King who is victorious. We lift our hands, we lift our voice, we celebrate our champion. We sing halal, halal Yahuwah, for the King. With you, you're our champion. You we can lose. We always win. You're our champion. We lift our hands. We lift our voice. We celebrate our champion. We sing halal, halal Yahuwah, for the King who is victorious. Yahuwah is the awesome one, and there is none like you. With you we win. You're our champion. With you we can lose. We always win. You're our champion. Oh, Yahuwah is the awesome one. There is none like you. With you we win. You're our champion. You we can lose. We always win. You're our champion. Oh, we lift our hands, we lift our voice, we celebrate our champion. We sing halal, halal Yahuwah, for the King who is victorious. We lift our hands, we lift our voice, we celebrate our champion. We sing halal, halal Yahuwah, for the King who is victorious. Yahuwah is the awesome one. There is none like you. With you we win. You're our champion. You we can lose. We always win. You're our champion. Oh, Yahuwah is the awesome one. There is none like you. With you we win. You're our champion. You we can lose. We always win. You're our champion. You move like the awesome one. There is none like you. With you we win. You're our champion. You we can lose. We always win. You're our champion. We lift our hands. We lift our voice. We celebrate our champion. We sing hallelujah, for the King who is victorious. We lift our hands. We lift our voice. We celebrate our champion. We sing hallelujah, for the King who is victorious. You are the awesome one. There is none like you. With you we win. You're our champion. With you we can lose. We always win. You're our champion. Oh, you move like the awesome one. There is none like you. With you we win. You're our champion. You we can lose. We always win. You're our champion. You move like the awesome one. There's none like you. With you we win. You're our champion. With you we can. We always win. You're our champion. We lift our hands. We lift our voice. We celebrate our champion. We sing hallelujah, for the King who is victorious. We lift our hands. We lift our voice. We celebrate our champion. We sing hallelujah, for the King who is victorious. You are the awesome one. There is none like you. With you we win. You're our champion. You we can. We always win. You're our champion. You are the awesome one. You're our champion. You we can. We always win. You're our champion. on this great Shabbat. We appreciate him for all that he's doing, all that he's done, and all that he's yet going to do. We appreciate him for his ahab, for his kindness, his compassion, and his long suffering and commitment towards us, Yasharal. It is a great Yom and it is a great Layla, and we do appreciate him once again for allowing us to celebrate this great occasion, one of the Moedim, and it is the Sabbath, a time of rest. So we're going to begin with the Baruch of the Torah. Repeat with me, Baruch Yahuwah.
Baruch Yahuwah.
The Baruch one.
The Baruch
Is Yahuwah.
Baruch is Yahuwah.
The Baruch one.
The Baruch
For all eternity.
For all eternity.
Baruch atah.
Baruch atah.
Yahuwah.
Yahuwah.
Our supreme one.
Our supreme one.
King of the universe.
King of the universe.
Who selected us from all the peoples.
Who selected us from all the people.
And gave us his Torah.
And gave us his Torah.
Baruch atah.
Baruch atah.
Yahuwah.
Yahuwah.
Giver of the Torah.
Giver of the Torah.
And it is so.
And it is so.
Baruch
atah.
Yahuwah.
Yahuwah.
Our supreme one.
Our supreme one.
King of the universe.
King of the universe.
Who gave us the Torah of truth.
Who gave us the Torah of truth.
And implanted eternal life within us.
And implanted eternal life within us.
Baruch atah.
Baruch atah.
Yahuwah.
Yahuwah.
Giver of the Torah.
Giver of the Torah.
And it is so.
And it is so.
Now we will have the reading of the Torah by Mattathias.
Revelation 5:6-22. Aleph. I am Yahuwah, your power, which brought you out of the land of Mitzrayim from the bait of slavery. Bait, you shall have no other power before me. You shall not make you any graven image or any likeness of anything that is in Shemayim above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the mind beneath the earth. You shall not bow down yourself unto them, nor serve them, for I, Yahuwah, your power, am a jealous power, visiting the iniquity of the hours upon the children unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me, and showing mercy unto thousands of them that have me and keep my commandments. Gemel, you shall not take the name of Yahuwah your power and falsify it, for Yahuwah will not hold him guiltless that takes his name and empties it. Dalet, guard the Sabbath day to set it apart, as Yahuwah your power has commanded you. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is the Sabbath of Yahuwah your power. In it you shall not do any work, you, nor your son, nor your daughter, nor your manservant, nor your maidservant, nor your ox, nor your ass, nor any of your cattle, nor your foreigner that is within your gates, that your manservant and your maidservant may rest as well as you. And remember that you were a servant in the land of Mitzrayim, and that Yahuwah your power brought you out of there through a mighty hand and by a stretched out arm. Therefore Yahuwah your power commanded you to keep the Sabbath day. Hey, esteem your hour as Yahuwah your power has commanded you, that your days may be prolonged and that it may go well with you in the land which Yahuwah your power is about to give you. Well, you shall not murder. Saying, neither shall you commit adultery. Ket, neither shall you steal. Tet, neither shall you bear false witness against your neighbor. You, neither shall you desire your neighbor's isha, neither shall you cover your neighbor's bed, his field, or his manservant, or his maidservant, his ox, or his neighbors. These words Yahuwah spoke unto all your assembly in the mount, out of the midst of the fire, of the cloud, and of the thick darkness with a great voice. And he added no more. And he wrote them in 2 tables of stone and delivered them unto me. And it is so.
And it is so.
Chapter 6 of Devarim, verses 1-18. These are the commandments, the statutes, and the judgments which Yahuwah your power commanded to teach you, that do them in the land where you're going to enter and possess it, that you might fear Yahuwah your power to keep all his statutes and his commandments, which I command you, you and your son and your grandson, all the yamim of your life, and that your yamim may be prolonged. Hear therefore, O Yasharal, and observe to do it, that it may be well with you, and that you may increase mightily, as Yahuwah power of your Abbas has promised you, in the land that flows with milk and honey. Shema, Yasharal. Hear, O Yasharal, Yahuwah our supreme one. Yahuwah is a God. And you shall ahab Yahuwah your supreme one with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your might. And these words which I command you this yom shall be in your heart, and you shall teach them diligently unto your children, and shall talk of them when you sit in your bed, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise up. And you shall bind them for a sign upon your hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes. To fall to what?
Bind to the mind.
To bind to the mind. And you shall write them upon the posts of your bed and on your gates. And it shall be when Yahuwah your power shall have brought you into the land which he swore unto your Abbas, to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Yaakov, to give you great cities which you did not build, houses full of all great things which you filled not. And wells dug which you did not dig, vineyards and olive trees which you did not plant. When you shall have eaten that before, then beware lest you forget Yahuwah, which brought you forth out of the land of Mitzrayim, from the bed of slavery. You shall fear Yahuwah your power and serve him, and shall swear by his name. You shall not go after the power of the people which are round about you. For Yahuwah your power is a jealous power among you, lest the anger of Yahuwah your power be kindled against you, and he destroy you from out the face of the arid. You shall not tempt Yahuwah your power as you tempted him in Massah. You shall diligently keep the commandments of Yahuwah your power and his testimonies and his statutes, which he has commanded you. Verse 18, and you shall do that which is right in the sight of Yahuwah, that it may be well with you, and that you may go in and possess the great land which Yahuwah swore unto your fathers. And it is so.
And it is so.
And it is so. Let us have another song, please.
Al Baruch Yahuwah, Al Baruch Yahuwah, with a heart of thanksgiving. Al Baruch Yahuwah, Al Baruch Yahuwah. Al Baruch Yahuwah, with a heart of thanksgiving. Al Baruch Yahuwah, Al Baruch Yahuwah, Al Baruch Yahuwah, with a heart of thanksgiving. Al Baruch Yahuwah, Al Baruch Yahuwah, Al Baruch Yahuwah, with a heart of thanksgiving. Al Baruch Yahuwah, with my hands lifted up, and my mouth filled with praise, with a heart of thanksgiving. Al Baruch Yahuwah, with my hands lifted up, and my mouth filled with praise, with a heart of thanksgiving. Al Baruch Yahuwah, Al Baruch Yahuwah, Al Baruch Yahuwah, with a heart of thanksgiving. Al Baruch Yahuwah, Al Baruch Yahuwah, with a heart of thanksgiving. Al Baruch Yahuwah, with my hands lifted up, and my mouth filled with praise, with a heart of thanksgiving. Al Baruch Yahuwah, with my hands lifted up, and my mouth filled with praise, with a heart of thanksgiving. Al Baruch Yahuwah, Al with the and my mouth filled with praise, with the heart of thanksgiving, I will Yahuwah. With my hands lifted up, and my mouth filled with praise, with the heart of thanksgiving, I will Yahuwah. With my hands lifted up, and my mouth filled with praise, with the heart of thanksgiving, our Yahuwah. With my hands lifted up, and my mouth filled with praise, with the heart of thanksgiving, our Yahuwah. Our Yahuwah. Our Yahuwah. With the heart of thanksgiving, our Yahuwah. Our Yahuwah. Our Yahuwah. With the heart of thanksgiving, our Yahuwah. Our Yahuwah. Our Yahuwah. With the heart of thanksgiving, our Yahuwah. With the heart of thanksgiving, our Yahuwah. With my hands lifted up, and my mouth filled with praise, with the heart of thanksgiving, our Yahuwah. With my hands lifted up, and my mouth filled with praise, with the heart of thanksgiving, our Yahuwah. Our Yahuwah. Our Yahuwah. With the heart of thanksgiving, our Yahuwah. With my hands lifted up, and my mouth filled with praise, with the heart of thanksgiving, our Yahuwah. With my hands lifted up, and my mouth filled with praise, with the heart of thanksgiving, our Yahuwah. Our Yahuwah. Our Yahuwah. With the heart of thanksgiving, our Yahuwah.
Yes, he is. You're worthy of it. We appreciate you. Let us turn our attention to the scroll of Yahush, the son of Nun, chapter 1. And we're going to read verses 6 and 7, and then we're going to verse 8. And it is so. And it is so. All right. Verse 6, be strong and of a great courage, for to this people shall you divide for an inheritance the land, which I swore to their Abbas to give them. Only be you strong and very courageous, that you have to do according to all the Torah which Moshe my servant commanded you. Turn not from it to the right hand or to the left, that you may prosper wherever you go. Verse 8, as I've tailored it to fit our time of confession. Repeat with me, I will not let this scroll of the Torah,
I will not let the scroll of the Torah
depart out of my mouth,
depart out of my mouth,
but I shall meditate
but
therein,
I shall meditate therein,
Yom and Layla,
Yom and Layla,
that I may observe to do
that I may observe to do,
according to all that is written in it.
according to all that is written in it.
But then I shall make my way prosperous,
For then I shall make my way prosperous,
and then I shall act wisely.
and then I shall act wisely.
Now look at your neighbor, tell your neighbor, you shall act wisely, and you shall act wisely. Look at your other neighbor, tell your other neighbor, you shall act wisely, and you shall. Take your hand and put it over your heart and say, Abba Yahuwah,
Abba Yahuwah,
I shall act wisely.
I shall act wisely.
Come on, Abba Yahuwah,
Abba Yahuwah,
I shall act wisely.
I shall act wisely.
I am determined
I am determined
to act wisely.
to act wisely.
I am determined
I am determined
to act wisely.
to act wisely.
I am determined
I am determined
to act wisely.
to act wisely.
And it is so.
And it is so.
And it is so. Let us have a song, please. Worthy, worthy, Yahuwah is worthy of my praise. Worthy, worthy, Yahuwah is worthy of my praise. I said he's worthy of my praise. Worthy of my praise. Yahuwah is worthy of my praise. Worthy, worthy. Yahuwah is worthy of my praise. Worthy, worthy. Yahuwah is worthy of my praise. I said he's worthy of my praise. Worthy of my praise. Yahuwah is worthy of my praise. Worthy of my praise. Worthy of my praise. Yahuwah is worthy of my praise. Worthy, worthy. Yahuwah is worthy of my praise. Worthy, worthy. Yahuwah is worthy of my praise. I said he's worthy of my praise. Worthy of my praise. Yahuwah is worthy of my praise. Worthy, worthy. Yahuwah
Worthy, worthy. You is worthy of my praise. Worthy of my praise. Worthy of my praise. You is worthy of my praise. Worthy of my praise. Worthy of my praise. You is worthy of my praise. Worthy, worthy. You is worthy of my praise. Worthy, worthy. You is worthy of my praise. Worthy of my praise. Worthy of my praise. You is worthy of my praise. Worthy of my praise. Worthy of my praise. You is worthy of my praise. Worthy of my praise. Worthy of my praise. You is worthy of my praise. Worthy, worthy. You is worthy of my praise. Worthy, worthy. You is worthy of my praise. Worthy of my praise. Worthy of my praise. You is worthy of my praise. Worthy of my praise. Worthy of my praise. You is worthy of my praise. Worthy of my praise. Worthy. Come on, we appreciate God for what He's doing, what He's done, what He's yet going to do. We truly do appreciate it. At this time, go into Yehukanan Aleph, chapter 5, verses 1 through 15. And this is to encourage, as I always try to make it known to our listening audience, near and far. And why I read this is to continue to encourage those of us that are believing in the Mashiach. And for those that may be skeptical and you're not sure of whether to believe in him or not, because you are, you've heard so much erroneous stuff that's been spoken about, first and foremost, the renewed covenant and its origin. Well, I can truly assure you that the original, renewed covenant was only written in Hebrew, not Greek, not Aramaic. So you must understand this is the documentation for us to believe and have information to sustain us once again, to hold on to our belief. Him, you have no, you don't have everlasting life. I don't care who or what someone says. I don't care how they try to tear it down. I don't care how they try to tear him down. It is important that you believe beyond the shadow of a doubt based upon the evidence and the proof that is presented. You have to understand, why would they be so adamant about keeping you and me away from the renewed covenant? Because they understand it is the source of our belief and it is the source of our life. Why? Because it's an extension of the first covenant. There is no old and new covenant. Old and New Testament. It is the first covenant and the renewed or the extension of the covenant. And so it is important that, one, we renew our minds and start thinking according to the oppressors and to erroneous thinking, so that, like I like to say, get rid of that stinking thinking, so that we can really begin to hold on to and grasp the truth about our Mashiach. Because it is in him that we have life. If you don't have him, you won't have eternal life. If you want to keep something away from a person, or keep a person away from, a person or a thing, begin to talk bad about it.
Right.
Begin to discredit it. Begin to falsify. Begin to bring about deceit, deceit and deceit, which is treachery and other deliberate devices to cause us to doubt the very information that we need to help us substantiate this way of life. Let me tell you something. The enemy is shrewd, and those at whom he has called to work and operate for him are shrewd too. So it's important that you understand that this is a very important platform and very important part of our lives, because without him, you don't have life. You don't have eternal life. And so you can't afford to let people swindle you out of ignorance and because of their lack of understanding and their lack of knowledge and proof to cause you to miss out. One thing I've learned, and I will continue to stand on it, just because a person has proof, what may seem to be proof and what may seem to be legitimate evidence, you've got truth is. You have to understand, because if we don't, then what will happen to us as a people? We will continue to follow in this path, and we will constantly be bombarded, and we will constantly find our people being destroyed. It is not very popular because people more and more now are giving up on the Mashiach. More and more people are walking away and saying it's a lie. And some of the stuff people say, I would dare not repeat it. Why? Because I respect and I have him enough to know that I don't have to repeat everything to convince you that these people are silly and ignorant. There's some things that we ought not rehearse back. But the bottom line is, it is important that if you're going to believe in one part of it, then you need to believe in all of it. I'm going to believe this part, the first part of it, then I'm going to cut the other part off saying, well, that's not right. That's just like saying you're going to drive the car, but take the wheels off. Come on now, we have to be real. Let's be real, and let's walk in reality in this, so that we're not beguiled and truly destroyed by the enemy. It's very important that we understand that. Once again, Yahuchanan, Aleph, chapter 5, verses 1 through 15. And it reads, everyone who believes that Yahush is the Mashiach has been born of Yahuwah. And everyone who ahabs the one bringing forth also ahab the one having been born of him. By this we know that we ahab the children of Yahuwah, when we ahab Yahuwah and guard his commands. Nowhere is he telling us not to guard the commands. Nowhere has Yahuchanan or Yahush ever told us to break the commands. Verse 3, I'm gonna read that again. For this is the ahab for Yahuwah, that we guard his commands, and his commands are not difficult, because everyone having been begotten of Yahuwah overcomes the world. And this is the overcoming that has overcome the world, our belief. Now you got to ask yourself the question, our belief in what? Our belief in the Mashiach. That's the only way you're going to overcome this world and its schemes and its diabolical plans and lawlessness and falsehood. That's the only way we're going to be able to be victorious, not just surviving. I don't know about you. I'm not in it just to survive. I'm in it to live. That's important to understand. Who is the one who overcomes the world, but he who believes that Yahush is the son of Yahuwah? That's a question. Why is he asking the question? Because he's about to show us the answer in the next few verses. Who is the one who overcomes the world, but he who believes that Yahush is the son of Yahuwah? This is the one that came by water and blood, Yahush Mashiach. Not only by water, but by water and blood. And it is the Ruach who bears witness, because the Ruach is the truth. Because there are three who bear witness, the Ruach and the water and the blood, and the three are in agreement. If we receive the witness of men, the witness of Yahuwah is greater, because this is the witness of Yahuwah which he has. So all those of us that say we believe and we ahab Abba Yahuwah, then we ought to be able to accept the witness that he has given unto us concerning his son.
God.
Very important. Are you hearing me?
God.
The one who believes in the son of Yahuwah has the witness in himself. The one who does not believe Yahuwah has made him a liar, because he has not believed the witness that Yahuwah has given concerning his son. And this is the witness that Yahuwah has given us eternal life. And this life is in his Son. He who possesses the Son possesses life. He who does not possess the Son of Yahuwah does not possess life. I have written this to you who believe in the name of the Son of Yahuwah, so that you know that you possess everlasting life. Remember, he's writing it to those of who are believers. This is for believers. So people that don't believe are not going to accept it.
Sure.
Why? Once again, because of erroneous teaching, falsehood.
Right.
And if you don't understand that the renewed covenant, once again, was written in Hebrew, not Greek or Aramaic. That's another misconception that we have to get out of our heads. They did not write. Are you hearing me? They did not write this. If you do have the writings that it is written in Greek or Aramaic, that is because they copied it, but they put their own interpretation in the areas that they wanted. But originally it was written in Hebrew, not in Greek or Aramaic. Verse 11. And this is the witness that Yahuwah has given us eternal life, and this life is in his Son. He who possesses the Son possesses life. He who does not possess the Son of Yahuwah does not possess life. I have written this to you who believe in the name of the Son of Yahuwah, so that you know that you possess everlasting life, and so that you believe in the name of the Son of Yahuwah. And this is the boldness that we have in we ask whatever according to his desire, he hears us. And if we know that he hears us, whatever we ask, we know that we have the petitions that we have asked of him. That is important to understand, because you have to understand many are going off of assumptions. Many are going off of false interpretations of the writings. But Yahuwah brings it forth and gives us clarity and shows us. Now you have to understand, which this is not my topic on Tiyam. The reason why Yahuwah had to put it in this manner is because he was dealing with a lot of people at that time that did not believe in the Mashiach, just like we have a lot that don't believe in him Tiyam. Then you had many that were defecting from this way of life. Why? Because they allowed someone to creep in and began to plant a seed of doubt and disbelief into their ears, into their hearing, and into their hearts concerning the Mashiach. And so it is important that we understand this was put in there. Why? So that we would stray away from what gives us eternal life. Right. It's just like a key. If you don't have the key to the vault, if you don't have the key to the your bank account, if you don't have the key to your, what's the thing when you go in into the bank safe deposit box, if you don't have a safe deposit box, if you don't have the key to that safe deposit box, then everything that's in there is forfeited because you can't get it because you don't have the key. The key to eternal life is Yahushua our Mashiach, sent by the Abba to show us the way. This is why it's important that we cannot disregard his presence. Neither can we disregard the importance of him being in our lives. Once again, it's important that we do our research and that we not be beguiled by those that are ignorant concerning the way of life and concerning the Mashiach. This is so important. Why? Because so many people have strayed. I have listened and seen and different posts and heard different people, and I unfollowed them, because when a person has made up their mind, no matter what you say to them, and it's just going to be negative and you're just going to disrespect the Mashiach, then we can't follow. I can't walk with you, because if we're not in agreement, there can be no unity. And so it is important that we understand these things that have come about. Why? Because once again, the enemy does not want us to grab a hold to what gives us eternal life. Now understand, Yahushua, no matter where you read, has never come and ever said anything derogative or negative concerning the instructions of his Abba. He has always pointed us to the Abba and no other place. If you see somebody doing that, then you know that's not the Mashiach. Okay. In spite of what Moshe found himself, we're going to have another song, found himself in trouble with, he said that there will be a prophet that will come that will be just like him. Moshe didn't get in trouble because, or lose out because he was teaching erroneous teaching. He got in trouble and lost out because he lost his temper.
God.
Because when Abba Yahuwah told him, magnify me, excuse me, in the presence of the people, He couldn't do it because he felt like they were not deserving of it because of their attitude. So instead of him tapping, he struck the rock. In other words, he went over there with full force and banged on it. Because it was at that time he wanted to show them how angry he was with them and basically show himself to be strong. And in doing so, he ended up losing out. But it wasn't because he was teaching an erroneous instruction to the people. Now, once again, you have to understand the Mashiach come as Moshe, a deliverer and a spokesman for us people. So it's very important that we keep that in mind, no matter what we are, no matter what we're doing, no matter what we're facing, and no matter who we're facing, and no matter who we're dealing with. If they don't believe and you cannot convince them, remember the writings tell us, follow shalom with all men, and without no man shall see what? Abba Yahuwah. So it's important. If you cannot follow shalom with them, then you have to part with them, pray for them, and keep it moving. Because if you don't, you'll be fighting with them. And if you're not careful, they will overcome you. And the next thing you know, you'll be following into that foolishness as well. Because that foolishness that they speak, you got to understand, you can never say that there is nothing behind it that will cause you to change your way of thinking. You have to be careful because some things, just like how, back in the day when people would drink and smoke and they would lace their stuff with, stuff, they wouldn't do it a whole lot. Some people wouldn't, but then some people would lace it just enough to give you that extra buzz, just enough to where you start craving more of it, to where you want a stronger dose of it. Well, these are what these type of people do. They put just enough out there for you to question it if your belief in the Mashiach is not strong enough. Lace it, and then the more you want, the stronger it becomes. And the next thing you know, if you're not careful, you will be denouncing him and rejecting him too, because you've allowed them to speak into your ruach when you should not have. Take heed how you stand, lest you fall. It is important that we understand that. Are y'all following me? It's very important that we understand that, because we can't afford to forfeit our way of life. And especially in a time when we don't have time to be vacillating and messing around. And it is so. And it is so. Let us have another song, please.
Mighty are the works of your hands.
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 Strong and mighty, strong and mighty.
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 Great are the works of your hands.
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 Strong and mighty, strong and mighty.
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 Powerful are the works of your hands.
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 Strong and mighty, strong and mighty.
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 Merciful are the works of your hands.
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 Strong and mighty, strong and mighty.
Strong and mighty, strong and mighty.
Strong and mighty,
Strong
strong and mighty.
and mighty, strong and mighty.
Awesome are the works of your hands.
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 Awesome in. Strong and mighty, 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 strong and mighty. Great are the works of your hands. Great are the works of your hands. Strong and mighty, 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 strong and mighty. Great are the works of your hands. 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 Great are your hands. Great are the works of your hands. Great are the works of your hands. Great are the works of your hands. Strong and mighty, 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 strong and mighty. Awesome are the works of your hands. 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 Water you turn into wine. Open the eyes of the blind. There's no one like you, none like you. Into the darkness you shine. Out of the ashes we rise. There's no one like you, none like you. Water you turn into wine. Open the eyes of the blind. There's no one like you, none like you. Into the darkness you shine. Out of this we rise. There's no one like you, none like you. Yahuwah is greater, Yahuwah is stronger, Yahuwah is higher than any other. Yahuwah is healer, awesome in power, Yahuwah, Yahuwah. Yahuwah is greater, Yahuwah is stronger, Yahuwah is higher than any other. Yahuwah is healer, awesome in power, Yahuwah, Yahuwah. Yahuwah is greater, Yahuwah is stronger, Yahuwah is higher than any other. Yahuwah is healer, awesome in power, Yahuwah, Yahuwah. And if Yahuwah is for us, then who could ever stop us? And if Yahuwah is with us, what can stand against? And if Yahuwah is for us, then who could ever stop us? And if Yahuwah is with us, what can stand against? And if Yahuwah is for us, then who could ever stop us? And if Yahuwah is with us, what can stand against? Stand against. Stand against. And if Yahuwah is for us, then who could ever stop us? And if Yahuwah is with us, what can stand against? And if Yahuwah is for us, then who could ever stop us? And if Yahuwah is with us, then what can stand against? And if Yahuwah is for us, then who could ever stop us? And if Yahuwah is with us, then what can stand against? Stand against. Stand against. And if Yahuwah is for us, then who could ever stop us? And if Yahuwah is with us, then what can stand against? And if Yahuwah is for us, then who could ever stop us? And if Yahuwah is with us, what can stand against? And if Yahuwah is for us, then who could ever stop us?
for all that he's doing, all that he's done, and all that he's yet going to do for us as people. At this time, we're going to do our affirmation to go into part 2 of our time of class. We have part 1, which we do our praise and worship, and then from praise and worship, we go into part 2. Part 2 is where we go right into the writings. We're going to do our affirmation, then our declaration, and this part out with the writings. Repeat with me. I purpose to develop my ruach.
I purpose to develop my ruach.
I purpose to walk in the light of Torah.
I purpose to walk in the light of Torah.
I am Ibram.
I am Ibram.
I am born again.
I am born again.
I am Ibram.
I am Ibram.
I have the life and nature
I have the life and nature
of Yahuwah in my ruach.
of Yahuwah in my ruach.
That life is the Torah
That life is the Torah
of Yasharal.
of Yasharal.
I purpose to walk in
I purpose to walk in
the Torah of life.
the Torah of life.
Yahuwah's Torah,
Yahuwah's Torah,
Yahush,
Yahush,
is in me.
is in me.
Yahuwah's knowledge,
Yahuwah's knowledge
is in me.
is in me.
Yahuwah's ahab,
Yahuwah's Ahab
is in me.
is in me.
Yahuwah's power,
Yahuwah's power
is in me.
is in me.
Yahuwah's wisdom,
Yahuwah's wisdom
is in me.
is in me.
He is teaching me.
He is teaching me.
He is leading me.
He is leading me.
I am a child of Yahuwah.
I am a child of Yahuwah.
The Ruach
The Ruach
HaKodesh
HaKodesh
of Yahuwah in me
of Yahuwah in me
is leading me.
is leading me.
I'll follow her leading.
I'll follow her leading.
I'll walk in the Torah.
I'll walk in the Torah.
Yahush,
Yahush,
our Mashiach.
Al-Mashiach.
And it is so.
And it is so.
Our declaration. Repeat with me. Abba Yahuwah,
Abba Yahuwah,
in the name of Yahush,
in the name of Yahush,
our Mashiach.
our Mashiach.
We subdue ignorance
We subdue ignorance
with Torah knowledge.
with Torah knowledge.
And through this knowledge
And through this knowledge
of Torah truth,
of Torah truth,
we claim healing,
we claim healing,
shalom,
shalom,
deliverance,
deliverance,
and salvation.
and salvation.
We decree
We decree
Torah truth
Torah truth
in the lives
in the lives
of your people,
of your people,
our people,
our people,
Yasharal.
Yasharal.
We unite,
We unite
not to fight,
not to fight,
not to fight
not to fight
each other,
each other,
each other,
each other,
but the enemy
but the enemy
of our belief.
of our belief.
And it is so.
And it is so.
Let us have a blessing.
Let everything that has breath praise Yahuwah. 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 Yeah, 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 let everything that has breath praise Yahuwah. Let everything that has breath
Let everything that has breath praise the Lord. Let everything that has breath praise the Lord. Let everything that has breath praise the Lord. Yeah, 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 let everything that has breath praise the Lord. 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 Yeah, 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 yeah.
stand at this time to seal this portion of our class. Let us bow before our King and let us recite this. May the utterance of my mouth
May the utterance of my mouth
and the deliberation of my heart
and the deliberation of my heart
be desirable before you,
be desirable before you,
O Yahuwah,
O Yahuwah,
my rock
my rock
and my redeemer.
and my redeemer.
May the utterance of my mouth
May the utterance of my mouth
and the deliberation of my heart
and the deliberation of my heart
be desirable before you,
be desirable before you,
O Yahuwah,
O Yahuwah,
my rock
my rock
and my redeemer.
and my redeemer.
And it is so.
And it is so.
And it is so.
And it is so.
We have just recited from Tehillim 19 and 14. You may be seated in His presence. Once again, I want to say to you, you and you, Todah, for being a part of our Sabbath class on this Layla. We do appreciate the Abba for all that He's done thus far, and we appreciate Him for where He is going to take us. I want you to turn your attention to Luke chapter 14. And we're going to read verses 1 through 24. While you're turning there, I want to read this to those of you that are listening and so forth with you. Some very important truths about the origin or the original renewed covenant being in Hebrew. So we can substantiate. One of the things, those of you that listen consecutively or off and on, you will hear me say proof. It is important that not only you have proof that you have, but you have the right evidence to substantiate the proof that you are presenting, and vice versa. That if you're going to present proof, make sure that your evidence qualifies to support your proof.
Right.
Make sure your proof qualifies to support your evidence that you want to present. It is so important that we present evidence that has not been tainted, not based upon someone else's theology or based upon somebody else's assumption. Now, when I say that, I'm not saying that we're not to look at other people's research, because that's how you end up getting your answers to many of things, or we get our answers. But what I am saying is make sure that or whose information we're using, that information qualifies to be evidence based upon non-bias or non-bias approach. Somebody would say, well, what do you mean by that? In other words, in order to present it as evidence and as proof, you have to make sure that you have the substantial amount of evidence, that the proof supports its evidence, and that this is just not something that somebody is saying. And the reason why you or even myself gravitates to it or accepts it as truth is because it supports my belief. It is important we understand that, because many times we accept things because it supports our belief, but there is no validity in it. And watch this. There are no true scriptures to back it up. So it's important that we not falsify and make stuff up. We don't need to do that, because if it is truth, then truth is going to always find a platform to present itself.
Right.
Are y'all following me?
Yes.
That's very important for us to understand. And so, excuse me, while you're turning, I want to read this to you. And the reason I want to read this to you is because I want to help substantiate why we use the renewed covenant. It's not a lot, but it is enough, a nugget, to show you the importance of research, the importance of not just taking something for granted, but it's important that we understand that. The renewed covenant originally in Hebrew, yes. The renewed covenant was originally written in Hebrew or Ibram, according to these different ones, Bivan, Blitzard, Grant, and some other ones. These are scholars that have researched it. That raised a flag regarding the renewed covenant being originally written in Hebrew or Ibram and not Greek or Aramaic. Now, once again, this is where a lot of times the fight begins. Well, y'all are reading an Aramaic, a Greek, or a whitewashed, like many would like to say, book that has no validity. Maybe not to you because of your perception based upon somebody else's testimony, based upon their ignorance concerning its validity. Are y'all following me?
Yeah.
That's important for us to understand. Now, it's important that we understand once again. This person says, I also want to silence the liars and fraudsters who say Ibram was a dead language in times of Yahush and the apostles, and who also say that Yahush and his apostles did not speak. Now, once again, many say, this is why many do not believe, because they say that, number one, they disregard Yahush. I'm sorry, I'm trying to say two things in my mind. They disregard Yahush ever being the son of Abba Yahuwah, let alone them saying that he did not speak his own language. Now, for us, many of us, that would be true for many of us now. Are you hearing me? I'm learning to speak Ibram. I don't know it like I want to, but that is my goal. And I am studying to know all of its parts. The reason I don't know it was because I was denied access to knowing it. He was not. Are you following me?
Yeah.
So we can't compare in truthfulness and in fairness that time in so many cases with our time when it comes to the language, because he was raised and he was brought in to the culture. He was already raised in it. We are now being familiarized with it or brought back into our culture by walking in truth. We were stripped from it. Well, we were because of the era of our ancestors that we basically inherited.
That's right.
Are y'all following me?
Yes.
All right. Now I'm gonna give you, like I say, we're gonna go into Luca, but I want you to be able to go into it with an open heart and an open mind and not fighting against it because you're saying we are teaching or we are reading and believing in a falsified book. So we're going to put that to rest. All right. Now let's look in Acts 21 and 40 and then go to 22 and 2. And these are just a few. Okay. And 26 and 14. We're going to stick around in the writings of Acts.
Anyone before?
21 and 40. And 22 and 2 and 26 and 14. All right, let's start with 21 and 40.
After he had given permission, Paul stood on the steps and motioned with his hand to the people. When there was a great hush, he addressed them in the Hebrew language.
And it is so. Now, let's see what he said. Let's go into chapter 22, verse 1, which belongs with verse 40. Let's read that. Read that one too with it.
Brothers and olives, listen now to my defense before you. When they heard that he was addressing them in the Hebrew language, they became even quieter.
All right. Now, it's important. All right, we're going to end up, okay. With 22 and 2. All right, who had 22 and 2? All right, come on. Now, when you read 22 and 2, you're going to end up reading reading all the way down to 5, because we want to finish the thought.
Acts 22.
2 through 5. And this way we can substantiate. In other words, we just don't want to read the part that he was speaking in Hebrew. We want to show that he was addressing Ibram. Okay, the Ibram people, our people. All right.
And it reads, and when they heard that he spake in the Hebrew tongue to them, they kept the more silence. And he said, I am verily a man which am a Yehudim, born in Tarsus, a city in Cilicia, yet brought up in the city at the feet of Gamaliel, and taught according to the perfect manner of the Torah of the Abbas, and was zealous towards Yahuwah, as ye all are this day. And I persecuted this way unto the death, binding and delivering into prison both men and women, as also the high priest
do bear witness, and all the estate of the elders, from whom I also received letters unto the brethren, and went to Damascus, to bring them which were there bound unto Jerusalem, for to be punished. And it is.
And it is so. Key thing. He wasn't going just getting anybody. Key verse here says, in verse 4, who persecuted this way to the death, binding and delivering up into prison both who?
Men and women.
So that meant if you were a believer in truth, you were bound up and even killed. So you cannot disregard women and say that women do not have a part in this walk. That is wrong and that's a lie. He admitted that he did this to men and women who were believers in what? The truth. He said also, as also the high priest bears me witness, and all the elders from whom I also received letters to the brothers, and went to Damascus to bring in chains, even those who were there to Jerusalem to be punished. He said he received letters. Are y'all following me?
Yeah.
In order to do what he needed to do. Now he's speaking to Hebrew people in their language. This is what the writing said. No, this is not a, this is not falsified. You can read it here. And if you read that whole chapter and go into the next chapter, it's going to go into great detail about how our people suffered at the hands of their very own. That's a thing that even happens to young. All right, let's look at 26 and 14. All right, come on.
And when we had all fallen to the ground, I heard a voice speaking to me and saying in the Hebrew language, Shaul, Shaul, why do you persecute me? It is hard for you to kick against the prods.
And it is so. Now, he spoke to him in what? His dialect, his own language. That is important for us to understand. You have to remember, the renewed covenant was written for us, for our benefits, so that we would be able to accept the renewed covenant. This is how we get in, because we were not there at the beginning of the first covenant that was brought forth. So we come in on the renewing of the covenant. If you don't get in on the renewing covenant, what makes you think that you have access to the first covenant if you reject the renewing of it? That's important for us to understand. Now, the 2 or 3 witnesses requirement is now met. Let's go into Corinthians 13 and 1, because we want to show forth also scripture that helps to back us up and what we are conveying.
Chapter 2.
No, 13, I'm sorry. And it is up. All right, come on, read that for us.
Corinthians, chapter. This will be my 3rd visit to you. Every matter must be established by the testimony of 2 or 3 witnesses. And it is so.
And it is so. How many witnesses?
2 or 3.
2 or 3. And these witnesses have to be what? Credible. He said, this is the 3rd time I am coming to you by the mouth of what? 2 or 3 witnesses. Every word shall be established. But it has to be established by what? Credible witnesses. If these people were not credible and they were not reliable, he would not have had to deal with them. See, this is why, and I'm just going to take a moment just to say this, and we're going to go right back into chapter 4. But this is why it is important that our character and the person that we are, that we be a person reliable and credible. If you are not a person that's reliable and credible, and you are one that likes to lie or lie when you are in hot water, you are not a person that's credible. So you have to understand, Rabbi Shaul had a relationship with them to where he could believe that if they said this is going on, then he could go there and know it was going on and not go there because he had been swayed by people that just wanted him there or just because they just wanted to have something negative to say. This is why it is important. Let your word be yea and nay. Are you hearing me? Don't go over that because then you get into, I swear. That's when now it's problems. And if a person has to make you promise or swear, that means your word ain't worth anything. That means that you have said something so many times that now they put you in that position because your word is not credible.
That's right.
So in order for them to believe, that's what has to be done. Are you hearing me?
Yeah.
This is why it's important that the witnesses are credible and that their request of him had to be, because if not, it wouldn't have been established and substantiated. This is important. Now, it's important once again concerning the relationship of the language, and that the renewed covenant began with the Ibram language. That is important that we understand. And I wanted to bring the verses out so you can see. And this will be going to get into this again soon. But I want to deal with chapter 14 of Luca, because it's very important. I mean, all the writings are very important. But there comes a time when there are certain things that stand out during times of our lives that we really need to look at. So we're going to begin at verse 1 and we're going to read. It's 24 verses. Yeah. 24 verses, and so we're going to read, let's do 4 verses apiece, please.
Yeah.
Of Luca. Of Luca and 1 to 4.
And it came to pass, as he went into the bed of one of the chief Pharisees to eat lechem on the Sabbath day, that were watching him closely. And behold, there was a certain man before him suffering from dropsy. And Yahush, answering, spoke to the experts in the Torah and Pharisees, saying, is it by the Torah to heal on the Sabbath day? And they held their shalom. And he took him and healed him and let him go. And it is so.
And it is so. All right. Now, let's look at this. And it came to pass, as he went into the bed of one of the chief Pharisees to eat lechem, bread, on the Sabbath, that they were watching him closely. They were watching him closely because they knew that he was going to do something. He was sent to bring healing. Are you here? I think it's in Luca chapter 18 or chapter 4 and 18. Also in Yashayah 61, where he gives the description of what he's come to do, to heal, to bring recovering sight to the blind. So this is what he was sent to do. Now they're watching him closely because they want to see what he's going to do. Now, and behold, there was a certain man before him suffering from dropsy. Now, dropsy, it says in that one, but in this one, it says has edema. Edema. I think that's edema, which is also, I believe, a form of high blood pressure. Edema. Pharisees saying, is it permissible by the Torah to heal on the Sabbath yom? Now, and they held their shalom, and he took him and healed him and let him go. Now you have to understand, these were people that had a major problem other than what they believe to be sanctioned as the Sabbath rest. But here we see that the Mashiach is dealing in an area of compassion. I'm going to say, what you mean compassion? Compassion. Because how can we dwell with somebody and know suffering with a sickness of that magnitude and not desire to see them healed? Are y'all following me?
Yes.
Did y'all find it?
Yes.
What is it?
It's a swelling in the body parts. Like say the legs.
You know why it swells them? Because of
Yeah, from fluid injury.
from fluid. Anytime fluid sets in, that means the pressure. That means there's a problem with the kidneys. That means there's a problem with the kidneys. And so because of that, it could be a part of it. Most of the time when you find people that suffer with that, it's because of high blood pressure. Swelling and so forth. And it causes people with that to pass out because there's of blood flow. And so these are some of the things. But this is what he was dealing with. Now look what he says. Now they held their peace while he healed them and go, and answered them, saying, which of you shall have a donkey or an ox fallen into a pit and him out on the Sabbath young? Now he's asking the question. Why would he ask that question? Because he knew that in their hearts, the animals were of more importance to them than human life. You know why? Because I'm sure they had history of some of their oxes and donkeys falling into a pit or any situation where they needed help getting them out, and they did. But here this man was suffering with this disease. And they did nothing to try to bring about some shalom. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
Once again, it's important that we understand the Mashiach, his compassion, and what his purpose was and still is. Are you following me?
Come.
Now, and they could not answer him again to these things, you know, because he was telling them the what? The truth.
Come.
And he put forth a parable to those which were invited, when he marked how they chose out the chief rooms. Saying to them, when you are invited by any man to a wedding, do not sit down at the place of esteem, lest a more honorable or esteemed man than you be invited of him. Now you got to understand, as it was in that time, so it is to y'all. People are quick to get in places that they're not qualified to get in. And he saw this and he addressed it. He addressed it. All right. And he says, and he that invited you both comes and says to you, verse 9, give this man your place, and you began with shame to take the lower place, because you have just basically exalted yourself to a position that was never given to you. Sounds like that to y'all, don't it?
Yeah.
But when you are invited, go and sit down in the lowest place, that when he that invited you comes, he may say to you, friend, go up higher. Then you shall have esteem in the presence of the guests that sit at the table with you. For everyone who exalts himself shall be humbled, and he that humbles himself shall be exalted. Why? Because we got a lot of people that are not humble.
Right.
You have a lot of people that are self-exalted. They are puffed up. They are arrogant. They are boastful, proud, etc., etc. And you have to understand, Yahushua is bringing about the instructions and bringing about a change, because think about how many people put themselves in a position that they are undeserving of. Then he said to him that invited him, when you make a dinner or a supper, call not your friends, brothers, neither your relatives nor your rich neighbors, lest they also invite you back in return and they repay your esteem or your favor. Now, let me show you something with this. When we were in Christianity, this is the very thing that people would do. They would invite people that they knew was the same status of them, because they knew that they would get the same type of offering that was sown into their ministry. Not all of them, but the majority of them that we dealt with. I invite you and your congregation to come because you got a nice head of folk, and all your folk making nice money because they're driving all nice cars. Right. So when you get there, you know your offering is going to be, and your gate mending offering is going to be, nice and fat. But for someone that had a smaller congregation, they didn't want to fool with, because they knew that at some point, or they figured that because they were small in number, they wouldn't be able to match that amount. So they wouldn't do it, because in that, it was going to be, I scratch your back, you're going to scratch mine. If I wash your back, then you're going to wash my back. If you don't wash my back, then your back definitely will not get washed. Why? Because it was a washing of the hands. If I meet your criteria, you have to meet mine. If not, we cannot fellowship. And let me tell you how many times smaller churches ended up getting displaced and pushed aside because people felt like, they can't pay me back. Are y'all following me?
Okay.
What he is saying here to them as Ibram, the people that he's writing to, don't you be found doing that. Well, I can't invite them because they can't give me anything back. So what? So what? It is a time of impartation so that true transformation can take place. So it doesn't matter if they can feed you like you were fed with other people. It doesn't matter if they can give you what was given. What matters is the coming together and being able to help somebody. Now listen what he says in verse 13. But when you make a feast, call the poor, the maimed, the lame, and the blind, because they are the ones that need it the most.
Yeah.
And you shall be Baruch, for they cannot repay your favor. For you shall be favored at the resurrection of the righteous. See, people want the here and now. They ain't looking for something that's going to come later on. No, I can't do that. Now listen what he says in verse 15. And when one of them that sat at the table with him heard these sayings, or heard these things, he said to him, Baruch is he that shall eat lakim in the kingdom of power. Now, Yahush has to address this. Now, you have to understand, when somebody says something like that, that is almost like a open rebuttal to what has already been said. That is almost, to disrespect him and disregard what has already been spoken. Why? Because the thing of it is, well, ain't nobody thinking about what you said. This is what we're talking about. Why? Because remember now, they're at this feast, and this person that has called this feast and is doing this feast is a person of notoriety. So it's almost like, well, we already know we're going to make it, because look, we already making steps towards it by being at this banquet. Sometimes people have a way of being nice, nasty. They know how to throw stuff up in there, and think you don't understand. But Yahush understood very well what he was saying, and he's going to address it in verse 16. Let's read that, 16, 17, 18, and 19, please.
Starting at verse 16.
Mm-hmm.
But he said to him, a certain man gave a great supper and invited many. And he sent his servant at supper time to say to those who were invited, come, for all is now ready. But one by one they all began making excuses. The first man said to him, I have bought a field. I need to go and see it. I asked you to have me excused. And another said, I have bought 5 yoke of oxen, and I am going to try them out. I ask you have me excused.
And it is so. Look at how they made excuses. So what he's showing them is that while you're talking about Baruch is the one who eats the bread in the kingdom, hear what he said. Let's look at this again. Baruch is he that shall eat lakim in the kingdom of power.
Mm-hmm.
But you won't even humble yourself and come to the feast.
Mm-hmm.
Are y'all following me?
Yeah.
So how are you going to eat something in a kingdom? You are not even making preparations to deal with what's going on now.
Right.
They all made excuses. I got this going on. I got that going on. Isn't it the same way many times with many of our people?
Right.
Well, I can't keep the Sabbath, because I have to work, but you believe you're going to keep it in the land. But you won't even make the sacrifice to keep it here. Are y'all following me?
Right.
Well, I can't keep the feast because they're difficult, or, I can't get anywhere because I can't nobody help me. Excuses. But we are expecting to keep it when we get with him. If you don't keep it now, it won't be kept. That's the same thing when a person says, when people get into relationships. Now listen to me well. If a person is not doing what you think they should do before you get married to them, they're not going to change because you marry them and bring a child into the picture. That's not going to change it, because that person is who they are, regardless of who comes in the picture or who leaves the picture. And many times people have been brokenhearted thinking, because this is an assumption, and it is a bad assumption, and it is just a really bad way of thinking, that now, once I get in this, it's going to be better. But this person was not doing it before you really, seal the relationship. It's the same thing with this. If people are not keeping the feast now and keeping the Sabbath, while they saying when they get to the land and things are the way they're going to be, they're going to do it. No, they're not. Because you got to understand, I think people think there's going to be this, transformation where your mind is going to be zapped and you're going to forget everything. That's not happening. Your mind just, you're going to forget the person you are, and you're just going to become this, this person that has no mind and no thinking and no brain. That's a lie. You are still going to be very conscious, are you following me, of who you are, your responsibility, and watch this, and you're going to have a choice to either follow through with it or reject it. So it's important that we understand that's not the final end of it. So whatever you do now is what you're going to do then. Whatever you don't do, you're not going to do it. Somebody said, but when will this be? Y'all have to understand, in the millennium. If you're not keeping it now, you're not going to keep it then if you live. If you survive, you won't do it then. You know why? Because you're not going to believe it. You're not going to believe it. Are y'all following me? You won't believe it. And so this is why it is a lifestyle that we do now, and that no matter where we go, we will do it. You know how people say, well, prime example, when people say, well, I can't live off grid because I can't do the things that I used to do. That's the point of living off grid. The point of changing from the old man to the new man is because we're not trying to do the same things we used to do. And we're not trying to clean it up and say, well, we can do some things and not other things. No, our whole purpose is to live a more healthy, prosperous life. And when we say getting off grid, that's what we mean. The whole thing of living off grid means to really eradicate a whole lot of things that we do now. Are y'all following me? Yeah. And so many times when we see people and we say, oh, they're off grid livers. They live off grid. And then for the ones that really live off grid, you don't hear nothing or see nothing about them because they are really off grid. Are you following me? Yeah. So their lifestyle changes. And so if you're not willing to change now, you're not going to be willing to change then. Okay. So it is important that we understand that. And so here it is, Yahush is letting them know they made excuses, just like you make excuses. Watch this. You will go to that place because it's somebody of notoriety. But when you're invited to sit at the feast of the Abba and be there, you don't want to be there. Are you hearing me? Yeah. We make excuse after excuse. I can't get there because I don't have nobody to come pick me up. I can't get there because I don't have the means. I can't get there because I have to work. You know how many times people say that and I cringe because I'm like, you're putting work over everything else. When you want to do something, it can't be done. Are y'all following me? We trust in man, and the writings tell us, cursed is the man that leans into the arms of the flesh. That's right. We trust more in people and the system than we do the Abba. He said, I need go and see it. I ask you to excuse me. And another said, I have bought 5 yoke of oxen, and I go to test them. I ask you to excuse me, putting everything personal above what is most important, and that is an appointment with the Abba, a set appointment with the Abba. Are you hearing me? That's what's important. Very important. Are you hearing me? Because when we make excuses, we're really saying where our heart is. And that's why we cannot afford to make excuses. All right, let's read 20, 21. And let's do 20 and 21 so we can give everybody kind of got a little excited and start reading. Okay, let's go.
Verses 20 and 21. And another said, I have married a wife, and therefore I cannot come. So that servant came and showed his master these things. Then the master of the bed, being angry, said to his servant, Go out quickly into the streets and lanes of the city, and bring in hither the poor, and the maimed, and the halt, and the blind. And it is so.
And it is so. Now watch this. Now look at 20. And another said, I have married a wife, and therefore I cannot come. Why can't you both come? Are you hearing me? But look at the setup even now. You say, oh, we're going to have this, and we're going to do this. And, you know, and if the issue does come, it's like she's not there. This is another thing. Because it is a mishpachah, and it is something that we are to do as a mishpachah, even if the person does not accept it and want to come, it is still your responsibility, my responsibility, to leave that door open for them to come and be a part of it. Are you following me? Yeah. It is always, we're never to close that door for them to come. Never make excuses. Now, when he went and told, now mind you, this meal was already what? Prepared. He wasn't preparing it. It was already prepared. Already prepared. And that's why he said, go and invite them. Are you hearing me?
Yeah.
It was already prepared, not prepared. That's like you cook a big old meal and you say, oh, I know they're going to come. They're going to all come because they know how I do things, and I'm going to invite them, and then don't nobody come. They make all kind of excuses. Well, I can't come because I got to change the air out of my tires. Well, I can't come because I got to do this. I can't come because, you know, I'm going to be counting the hairs in my nose. All kind of crazy stuff. Because they don't want to involve themselves in a relationship with the Yahweh. That's important for us to understand. Now listen what he says in verse 21. He told me, he said, and he was angry and said to his servant, go out quickly into the streets and lanes of the city and bring in here the poor Yashreelites, the crippled Yashreelites, the blind Yashreelites, and the lame Yashreelites. He wasn't talking about anybody else. He was talking about our people. But he was giving those, watch this, that had the ability to come in first to come in. Does that mean he was putting them second? Absolutely not. Are y'all following me?
Yeah.
But he was telling them, y'all come on, because they were going to come too. But he was addressing them. Are y'all following me?
Yeah.
Now listen at this. And the servant said, Master, it is done as you have commanded, and yet there is more room. So the servant was already doing what he needed to do. He was already on it. He said, it's already a done deal. It's already done. See, because I believe within my heart of hearts, he realized they were rejecting it. So he went to those whom he knew needed it and wanted it. Sometimes we don't realize what we need until it is made known that, hey, you know what? We are crippled. Hey, what? You know what? You are blind. You know what? You are lame. And you need help. And this is the place to get it. Are you following me?
Yeah.
Very important. All right, let's read 22 and 23.
And it is so. Verse 22. Master, the servant said, what you ordered has been done, but there is still room. And the master told his servant, go out to the roads and country lanes and make them come in so that my house will be full. And it is so.
And it is so. Once again, in some reasons it said hedges, highways, right? Go out into the highways and country roads. Now look, you going out into places where people thinking, ain't none of us out there. You'll be surprised where we are. Are you following me? He said, go out there and get the people and come in that my bed may be filled. Now, this is where, once again, many times people go in and misinterpret the writings because they're yet believing that means go get anything and everything off the street. No, he's talking about our people. Because remember, who did he heal? The person at the Sabbath rest, who was that? He was a Hebrew. He was a Hebrew that was lame. He was sick. Why did they have to go get him? Because they were not welcome to those type of shingdings or to those feasts and parties. They were not welcome. He had to be there some way doing something that caught he was at the Shabbat class. But to go to a dinner and so forth, they wouldn't let them go in there. Are you following me? They wouldn't let them come in there. But he said, go get them. He said, they'll come. And these were our people. This was nobody else. All right, let's read. 24. Last verse.
For I tell you not of those men who were invited will enjoy my banquet. And it is.
For I say to you that none of those men which were invited shall taste of my supper. That's what Yahushua was telling them. They're not going to taste of it. And this is one of the things that, whether we want to address it and be real about it or not, if you don't comply now and don't come while the invitation is open, you can't come when the invitation is closed. You know, that's like trying to go to the store and the store is already closed. They're not going to open the door for you. They say, no, you had a time to be here. You know, the store closed at XYZ. You should have got yourself up early enough to be here because, no, we are not opening the door for you. Then how do we think that the Abba is going to open a door for us that has been open long enough for us to make a conscious decision based upon evidence, truth, and some facts? Are you following me?
Yeah.
That substantiates these things. Reason why many times we have a hard time believing and following through is because it's more than one or two, but these are one or two that I'm going to present. One, it is so ingrained in us because we won't listen to anything else. Two, because we are afraid of losing who and our status of where we are. And three, because really we just don't want to do it. That's just a few. Many times people just don't want to do it because they say, I don't want to. Then if you are afraid, you're not going to get with somebody that's going to remove that fear, especially if you're constantly dealing with people that they themselves don't want this way of life. So you are not going to get any encouragement from people that are in Christianity to walk in this. They ain't going to tell you, yeah, go on, this the way of life, because then that means they have to admit the way they're walking is wrong. And many of them are not ready to admit that. So they're not going to basically follow through with you. And then the ones that just say, you know, this thing is etched in me. You know, this is the way that Rabbi Shaul or Moreh Shaul mentality was. You know, I've been in this thing for so long. I want to do it, but there is a major struggle there because I'm struggling with being able to identify with this and identify with what I've been raised in. You got to understand, being raised in doing something and just coming into it are two different things. Because people that are raised in something, no matter what, you will still have that battle if you're not careful. Mm-hmm. You will. When we first came into this walk, being in Christianity for 30-something years, and then when the Abba called me out of Christianity to walk into his truth, there was no struggle to go back into it, but there was still those questions of how could I have read this and missed this? How could I have gone through this and missed it? And I won't lie, you do at times miss that fellowship. With the ones that made you laugh, with the ones that basically made you feel. But there is nothing more important to me than walking in truth. Right. That's just a feeling. And feelings do leave after time. Are you following me? Yeah. But truth remains with you, no matter what situation and state you find yourself in. Because you have those that will help you when you have and when you don't. And then you have those that will leave you high and dry when you don't have anything. But the thing of it is walking in truth is so important unto us as a people. And the reason it is because this is our way of life. We were created to esteem the Torah. We were created to follow the Torah. The Torah was not made for man. Man was made for the Torah was made for man. Are you hearing me? Yeah. But Torah was already in place. Right. And so when we came along, we were put into position to esteem the instructions of the Abba. So yes, the Torah was already in place. We were created to adhere and to listen and to worship the Abba for his instructions for our lives. So this is the way we are supposed to conduct our lives. And when we find ourselves being challenged with that, then we got to question what else or what residue is still on the inside of us that's causing us to have this dual battle within our minds and within our hearts. Because no matter how alone it may become, you got to remember, you're still never alone. Right. You're never alone. And so it's important that we understand to defect because, you know, I ain't got everybody around me. You got to remember when you was in Christianity, it ain't like you had everybody around. That's just another, you know, lie the enemy puts out there. So you start thinking, well, you know, when you was there, they wasn't treating you right. And if you go back, they surely ain't gonna treat you right. They're gonna demonize you and be trying to cast out what's not in there. So it's important that we understand. Another thing we can draw from this chapter is that Abba Yahuwah was showing their disregard for human welfare versus their animals. He said, who you would quickly go and get out because they realized this is my livelihood.
Right.
And if something happened to my livelihood, then I will not be able to function. Well, what about having that same level of a hub for our fellow man, for our fellow sister? Because we can't really, we're not supposed to be able to do without one another. We've just become we've become a people that if you're here, fine, and if you're not here, and that's the wrong attitude. Because when there is somebody missing, and I mean, and we start looking and saying, what happened to them? We know they was in here, and then when you seek them out and you see they've left the way or left this walk, and you go after them and they don't come back, then the only thing you can do is pray. But there ought to be something in us that says, you know, they're missing, and not take the attitude, well, you know, people gonna come and people gonna go. That's the wrong attitude to have. That's the wrong attitude to have. That you got the same attitude as the Pharisees and the Sadducees had, and even some of those high priests. But we don't need them. They all messed up anyway. We just need the ones that's already together. They the ones that's more messed up because they don't realize they messed up. The worst thing is that you can deal with is a person that does not understand and acknowledge and walk in the reality that there is something that they have issues, versus a person that says, I know I got issues and I know I need help, so I'm not going to even play with this thing. Because at least you know where they're coming from. People that hide it, you don't know where they're coming from. And so it's important that we understand these things. Once again, very important that we understand the Mashiach, his responsibility for our lives. But he was made responsible for our lives through the Abba, through Yahuwah, our King, our Abba, our everything. It is he who gave him the authority and the right to do what he did. And so it is important that we never disregard the one that's coming to help and to save you. You know, you disregard the one coming to help and save you, then who's gonna come and save you? Nobody. Can't nobody do it. You can't reject the saving the help, because when you reject the help, then once again you've rejected your lifeline. You reject your lifeline, you're in trouble. Because who is going to come and save you? If nobody even thought about bringing anything to bring you out of the dilemma, now here you come and this is truth to bring you out. Now everybody want to tell you it's wrong. You're thinking, well, where were you? So we have to be very careful of these things. Once again, I am Aliyah Yasharal, and I am the Mora of Messengers of Yahuwah's Kingdom of Great Belief Congregation located in South Carolina. I want you to remember to keep your head up, keep your shoulders squared, and keep your heart and your feet in and upon the Torah, because you can't go wrong. In these times, you have to remain focused. Focused. Why? Because everything is being thrown at our people, from being called hate groups to laws being passed that will substantiate the enemy over who the true people are. You got to understand, this is a wake-up call for us as a people to remain committed. And if you're not committed, you better get committed. They're making examples of people, because many times when you see people, and not to divert, but just to bring us aware, some of us know, some of us may not know, they didn't took Bill Cosby and everything they've done to him, from lying to him, making agreements with him. Now, according to the law, if you make a deal with the prosecutor, it has to stand. Well, according to many sources, his appeal has been knocked down numerous times. So his appeal to go back before the board has been knocked down, meaning that he can't appeal his sentence or whatever. He made a deal with the prosecutor. They dismissed that. The woman who was supposed to be quiet, who got paid $3 million, still testified against him. Now, what I'm saying, and the reason why I'm bringing this up, is you have to understand what laws apply to them only apply to you when they want to. That's right. And when they don't want them to apply to us, they will not. They got Cuba Gooding Jr. They got him up on charges. Now, y'all got to understand something. These things are coming out. Why? Because if we all looking at each other and all this crazy stuff is going on and we being called a hate group and really people not getting to the bottom of why all these things happen, then the moment you go somewhere, people going to be looking at you like you crazy. You start seeing people when they see you with the seats on or when people are wearing fringes, how they start cringing. You can feel it. Because the first thing they're thinking that you are this hate group, you these people that's going to do something crazy. Regardless of what people may be doing and how they're doing it, we must remain focused. We must remain focused and sober. Because in our soberness, we can make the right choices and right decisions. When you're not sober, you don't know what choice to make. You don't know what decision you need to make because you're not sober. So it's important that we remain sober and we stay in the opera no matter what. Put the excuses away. He's made a feast for us. He's called us home. Come on home and come on back into that place of truth. If you've never been in that truth, you still need to come on back home because it is our truth, claim and to hold on to. Once again, keep your head up, keep your shoulders squared, and keep your heart and your feet in and upon the Torah because you can't go wrong. I want you also to remember that you've been touched by Champion TV, a place where the champions reside. And it is so. And it is so. And it is so.